The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Music Business Common Ground webinar series. I'm Nicole Hennessy, Vice President of the Music Business Association. Today's presentation, we have with us Ilana. Ilana is from work. She's a certified executive life coach, and she's going to be leading us through a program called Engage and Mobilize Your Team. But before we jump into the presentation today, a couple housekeeping things that I'd like to share with you. Some great things happening here at Music Biz, especially as we plan for Music Biz 2019. That's our flagship annual event taking place May 5th through the 8th at the JW Marriott in Nashville, Tennessee. In the last week, we've announced that the industry power duo of Ethiopia, Habtemariam, and Jacqueline Saturn. Ethiopia is, of course, from Motown Records, and Jacqueline from Caroline. They're going to be our Wednesday morning featured presentation, and they'll discuss their individual journeys to the top of the power structure, being both presidents at their respective companies, and how they've used their platform to empower future female leaders in the music business. So looking forward to having both of these wonderful ladies on the program. On the awards and celebrity front, last week we announced our Hall of Fame inductees. We'll induct a slate of record labels, landmarks, executives, media outlets, but most notably, Giles Martin will be on hand to induct his father, the late Sir George Martin, into the Music Business Hall of Fame. So very exciting. That evening that presentation will be during our evening awards dinner. We have a number of awards that will be given out that evening. Our Breakthrough Artist Awards will go to BB Rexa and Kane Brown. Our Humanitarian Award will go to Darius Rucker. Our Chairman's Award is pending press release approval, and very excited to put that press release out in the next week. So, be looking for that Chairman's Award, a very, very special individual receiving that award this year. Our Executive Awards that evening will go to Randy Goodman, the Presidential Award. Randy is from Sony Nashville. And the Independent Spirit Award will go to our friends at Rochester-based Record Archive. So some great awards. Some great speakers. In addition to Ethiopia and Jacqueline, we have Zane Lowe from Apple, and Paul Rosenberg from Def Jam, and about 250 other speakers that will round out our educational programming. So, be sure to check out our award recipients, our speakers, and our attendees as well. Everything is online at musicbiz2019.com. Tickets still available, so feel free to check out the ticket pricing and see where you fall into those registration categories, and make your way to Nashville to join us for what many do call the most productive 4 days on the music industry calendar. So, be sure to be there with us. Our leadership webinar series, which you were a part of today, was a 4-part series. And this is the part 3 of 4. Part 4 will take place actually during Music Biz 2019 on May 6th from 2 to 3 p.m. And not only will we have this webinar like we have for parts 1, 2, and today 3, but we'll have part 4 of this leadership series as a webinar and also a face-to-face at Music Biz 2019. So if you're going to be there, be sure to be in the room with both Ilana and her partner in this series, Adam Mirabella. Be in the room to ask them questions face-to-face. But if you can't be with us in Nashville, Part 4 will also be a webinar, and you can join just as you did today. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn the floor over to Ilana. There is a questions box on your screen. If you have questions for Ilana as we go through this presentation, please feel free to enter your questions into that questions box. I'll help Ilana fill those questions throughout the presentation, and we'll take your questions as you send them in. So without any more ado, Ilana, thank you so much for being here for part 3 of this webinar, and we're all excited to hear how we can engage and mobilize our teams.
Well, thank you so much, Nicole, and thank you all out there listening for taking the time. Today, as Nicole mentioned, we're focused on how to engage our teams like a world-class leader. As Nicole stated, This is a part 3 of a 4-part series. The Music Business Association is dedicated to assisting all of you in the industry in becoming or even enhancing your ability to be leaders within the entertainment industry. So do hope you guys will join us out in Nashville. My partner, Adam Mirabella, sends his very, very best, and I believe is listening in today, but was not able to be a presenter at this time. So hopefully you guys can get a chance to meet him in Nashville as well. So to dive right in, why engagement? Some of you may even have gotten on this webinar and gone, well, I think I know what that is, but I'm not quite sure. You know, this question could almost read, what is engagement? Engagement, when we think of it in the business sense, is how committed are our team members to our cause? How much are they willing to go above and beyond? How much do they identify as a member of our team or of our brand? How much are they willing to promote us out there in the world? And ultimately, how satisfied, happy, and therefore productive are the people at our workplace? And I chose not to bore you guys with a bunch of statistics to prove the point for why engagement, but suffice it to say, this is, you know, almost as close as we can come to some secret sauce when it comes to an organization or a company or even just an individual team being quite effective. And intuitively, I think most of you listening could agree, if folks are really happy and committed and engaged, for lack of a better word, with what it is that they're doing, then they're going to do a better job. They're going to enjoy it more. They're going to stick around longer. Their, you know, retention rates are going to be better. They're going to represent the brand in a better way. So engagement is a really core skill for anyone looking to be a leader to understand, how do I increase engagement amongst my team? One small note here as you're listening, some of you may already be in positions of sort of traditional titled leadership, meaning you've got a director level title or you've got a bunch of people reporting to you in a formal, you know, hierarchical structure. Others of you may not have that at this moment, and that's okay. The tools that we're going to learn today they transcend whether it is, you know, you're a formal quote unquote leader or someone who is a leader in terms of being a proactive member of your team and someone who inspires others to take positive action. So wherever you sit in your career at this moment, hopefully these tools are of value to you. So what is it that we're going to be up to today? What will you actually gain through this webinar? One, overarching process to guide organizational level engagement initiatives. We'll go through that fairly quickly. Two is a framework that can be used by anyone to develop your own engagement approach. This webinar today is highly applied. I encourage you to have pen and paper handy or somewhere that you can write, because there's going to be some things that you may want to jot down. Very applied, very strategy and sort of tool oriented today. And number three, your personal engagement strategy. So wrapping that all up with personal engagement. So to dive right in, big picture process. This is a process that is effective for organizational initiatives, or if you're looking at how can I do this with a large group, with a team from sort of a 10,000 foot view. Number one, we want to look at assessing what's currently going on. Any time that we're doing any sort of an improvement initiative, we want to start by understanding what's the current state, what is the ground underneath our feet. So some questions that you'd like to ask when you're doing an assessment. Number one, what's working? And this is, again, true for really any area of improvement, any sort of a change initiative, but certainly if you're looking at leading some sort of a larger scale engagement initiative, what's working already? Where do people feel really bought in, very valued, like they're at their highest level of productivity? Number two, what isn't working? What are the pain points? Where do people feel like they're not aligned with your brand or not, you know, fully bought in, not happy in their day-to-day work? Number three, what solutions have we tried before that haven't worked? And closely followed to that, number four, what ideas are there for improvement? So, you know, before we launch into any big scale initiative, we want to figure out what have we already done and what can we learn from those experiences? And then, of course, just sort of generally speaking, get our ideas together about what we can do to move it forward. A second comment here on big picture process for if you're doing engagement at the organizational level, alignment is really important, meaning if you're on a leadership team right now and you've identified, gosh, we've got a lot of people contributing in our company, some of them seem sort of checked out, people are leaving really early, we saw some of them on Facebook saying disparaging things about our brand, whatever the thing may be. You want to make sure that you and the rest of the folks who are taking this charge, likely the other members of your leadership team, are fully in alignment about what you want to see through the engagement initiative, what the core problems are, and of course, what the systems and strategies are to improve it. Number 3, for organizational initiatives, you do want to have a systemic approach. I was a C-suite member of an organization, this is some years back, and we recognized that we had an engagement problem. Our people were leaving quite often. First of all, we had low retention rates. We were chronically having to backfill roles. But in addition, there was just a low morale. And as a result, there was sort of this general vibe of disgruntlement, And what we found through doing our assessment and making sure that we were aligned was that at the end of the day, the people just didn't really feel valued and recognized for their work. And so we needed to develop a systemic approach around values and recognition. And what that looked like for us was this sort of widespread rewards system, an incentive program, a much clearer org chart, et cetera. But we needed it to be systemic. We needed it to be that every member of the team at every level of the organization could feel those engagement efforts in a cohesive and systemic way. Not that one department was doing one thing and another was doing something else. And last but not least, ongoing evaluation. Arguably the most effective type of evaluation when it comes to employee engagement is engagement surveys. At this point in the business world, and certainly oncoming with the entertainment industry in general, having some sort of evaluation around staff satisfaction, employee satisfaction, employee engagement is really important. So keeping some ongoing evaluation there, also looking at your retention rates, how long are people staying, what are people saying on their exit interviews, that sort of thing. So if you are coming at this from a big picture process perspective, here are some good things to remember. But to dive into this, the rest of this presentation is going to be highly personalized strategies for you with those people who you interact with, be they members of your team or peers, or even, managers. If you're looking at managing up and trying to figure out how do I engage people in these ideas that I have or this type of movement that I want to see, we're going to kind of look at this from a backwards perspective. We're going to look at what are some of the most common mistakes that I certainly have made as a leader, that some of you may, resonate with, and that people in general make when they're seeking to engage those around them. What are some of the common mistakes? And then how do we avoid those mistakes? What are our solutions? So a quote here, just to sort of level set. I love this quote from Thomas Edison. It says, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." And I love that. That is definitely the story of my life, and probably rings true for some of you. We're always in a process of evolution and of learning. And so when we come at this from a perspective of where are the mistakes that we commonly make, I just want you to keep this in mind. If some of them you go, uh-oh, I'm definitely doing that, that's really okay. That's all part of the journey that I'm certainly on as well. So engagement mistake number 1, this is probably the most common, is we try to engage a them. So I've got a group of people and I'm trying to get them all on board with some new initiative, some new way of operating within the business. Maybe I'm trying to get them all really excited about a conference or a presentation or really just generally speaking, a change initiative. And I just sort of blanket my statements. I blanket my efforts. I think to myself, okay, I'm gonna figure out how do I engage them. Here's the thing. We can't really, at a sophisticated level at the very least, we don't engage a group, we engage a whole bunch of individuals. But every individual is going to need something slightly different. Every team member is going to have their own motivations, their own personalities, their own priorities. So when we try to engage a them, we end up falling short because our messages and our endeavors are too broad. So in order to avoid this mistake, we've got 3 steps for you guys to take that are very effective. Again, this is very process driven, but 3 steps that you can take to help you really engage the individuals in your midst and not a blanketed them. Number 1 is listing each team member. And in this case, I don't just mean listing their names. This little chart is something that you can actually literally fill out. I, as an executive coach, will go through this with team, coachees who want to improve their ability to engage their team. And we fill this chart out. So what it looks like. On the left there, you've got just the name of every member of the team or every individual who it is you're looking to engage. And then you rate them on a scale of 1 to 10 for each of these factors. The R factor is your relationship with them. 10 would be, it's amazing, it's fabulous. 1 would be, you two are about to, get in a bar fight or something. You're just very, not in a good place with each other. So what is the current level of relationship with that person? P factor would be performance. Overall, if you were to rate that person's performance, again, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being amazing, 1 being needs a whole lot of improvement, what is their performance at present? G factor is growth. And this is particularly important if you're in a position of leadership, you've got folks, reporting up to you. What do you see this person's growth potential being within your team and within your company? V factor, it stands for vital. How vital is this person to the current initiative, to perhaps your company or your team's overall success? How vital are their contributions? And E factor is where you get to just sort of take a stab at what's their current level of engagement, if you had to just rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. So when you go through this chart, and as you list out your folks, you may start to see some trends. For example, I have a client who I coach. She's a chief operating officer, oversees about 3,000 people, and she's got a leadership team of about 15. And she had an initiative that was really important to her that she was, seeking to engage her people in. And we went over this chart, we filled it out. And what she found was that she was spending the majority of her time on this initiative with the few people who had the best relationship with her already and whose performance was high already. So that kind of makes sense. They're the people that are already doing good things and that you enjoy being with, you've got a strong relationship with. What we found, though, was there was a few folks who were absolutely vital to the success of the initiative. That V factor was really high. The relationship factor was relatively low with those folks for her at that moment, but the V factor, the vitality factor, was really high. And lo and behold, she wasn't spending much time with them because it was harder for her, because it's more fun to spend time with folks that we already have a positive relationship with. And so through this exercise, what she discovered was, gosh, I need to spend more of my time and more of my energy on these couple of folks who are very vital. I need to develop those relationships and help develop their performance, but also just bring them into the fold on this process. So this chart in and of itself can be a really eye-opening tool. So next, after we've listed each team member and sort of come to understand current state, where they're at with their engagement with us or our initiative, we want to really get to know each team member. And I don't just mean, what's their name and what's their position. I mean a much more detailed view. Here's just some prompts that you can look to about things you want to ask yourself to really understand your people. I mentioned it when we first kicked this off, but folks ultimately, they do things for their own reasons, not ours. So if we're trying to engage someone, it's really helpful to understand what drives them, what are their personality factors, what's their learning style, what are their values, how do they like to be rewarded and recognized, etc. You guys can read through a few more of these, but it's really important to understand if I'm trying to have a meaningful collaboration with someone and I'm trying to get them to, be on board with me with this thing it is I'm trying to do, or this growth, or, overall just be an engaged member of my team or my company, I want to really understand who the heck they are so that I can engage with them in a way that makes sense for them as an individual. So you list them out, you really get to know them. And if you don't know the answers to some of those questions about them, it's great conversation topics to bring up in your next one-on-one meeting or even just out at lunch to really get to know them. And then number 3, we create a strategy for each and every team member. So again, if you're going to do this in a really structured way, you can literally write it out. But in general, you want to list their name. Oops, sorry about that, guys. Went forward a little bit. You want to list their name, the strategy that you're going to be employing with them, and by when. And I, as an executive coach, I'm really big on this. I'm big on the by when, because most of us, it's difficult to hold ourselves accountable to doing things that are proactive or hard or challenging. So I always like to have a little by when that a person is going to say, okay, I'm going to do this by next Friday or by May 1st or whatever the case may be. So when you're thinking about your strategies for each team member, here's some general ideas that, may be applicable when it comes to getting in front of and engaging and mobilizing them. You may want to look at ways that you can better incentivize them. That could be rewards, that could be awards. You may want to look at if there's an opportunity for them to have a mentor. Maybe they're, a little bit less engaged with your company or your team because they're bored. Maybe they actually need more responsibility or to be moved up in the organization. Maybe there's some additional training that could be provided to either A, stimulate them, or B, help them correct some areas that perhaps are frustrating them or limiting their potential that are resulting in them being disengaged and therefore not as productive a member of the team as possible. Perhaps they can be redeployed. I'm sure you guys can think of times where someone is really struggling in one role or with one type of responsibilities, and they're redeployed. They're moved into a different section of the organization or given a different set of responsibilities, and all of a sudden they're blossoming and they're passionate and they're excited again. So they may need to be redeployed. This direct and inspect, sort of top near the right on your screen, sometimes folks need more accountability. So direct and inspect refers to a leadership style that is more hands-on and more structured, where you say, team member X, I need you to do A, B, C, and I'm going to follow up by, meeting with you again in a few days to talk about whether or not you did it. That type of management can feel like micromanaging to some people. So you want to be careful with how you utilize that. But in some cases, that level of just hands-on, very structured accountability can be really helpful. You may want to look at managing expectations. I've run across folks who are disengaged and not contributing to their best because they feel like they should be the CEO. And, maybe they're 22 and 1 year out of college and don't have that much experience, but they feel, gosh darn it, like they should be leading the organization. So sometimes you just have to have a really good heart-to-heart about managing expectations. When can someone anticipate a promotion or a raise or expanded responsibilities? Just managing that very directly. And then sometimes, bottom right corner here, sometimes the person is just not suited for the role or maybe for the organization. So sometimes they do need to be removed. And hopefully that's, a last case endeavor. So mistake number 2, if number 1 is trying to engage as them rather than looking at the individual, mistake number 2 would be we don't customize our message. And we're going to go over now 4 strategies, 4 tools that you can look to as a leader to help you really customize your message. So number 1 is just very simply developing and sending engaging messages. We'll dive into that. Number 2 is setting very clear expectations. This is so important when it comes to performance management in general, but also certainly engaging and mobilizing. Number 3, we'll look at recognizing and rewarding. We want to make sure our people are feeling from us that we value them and are recognizing them in their hard work. And number 4, adapting our communication to the individual, which as you can guess, will relate back to the work we just did with getting to know each of our individual team members. So number 1, developing and sending engaging messages. How often, might you guys hear something to the effect of, we need to do this because we need to grow revenue, or we need to do this because we need a bigger market share. That's not an engaging message. That's a tough one for people to really get behind, because the question for me, if I'm a team member, is why do I care? So some questions you want to ask yourself and some things that you want to highlight when you're developing an engaging message as a leader. Number 1, where have we been? Help orient your team and your people to, gosh, guys, we have been through so much. This company started off in our garage, in the back of someone's U-Haul, whatever the case may be. And look at us, we've grown now. We're 5,000 people just 10 years later. We've come so far. Where are we going? Help orient your people towards, we mentioned in a few of our earlier webinars, what's the vision? What's the purpose? What's the mission? What is it that we're building towards? We want to be an innovator. We want to be a premier label in the entertainment space. We want to be, whatever it is. Where is it that we're going? Help remind people of that big picture kind of shoot for the moon type of mentality. Where are we going? why does it matter? So why does our goals, why is what we're trying to accomplish here, why does that matter? What footprint are we going to have on ourselves, on our families, on our communities, on the industry, dare I say on the world, right? Why does it matter? And this one is so important, why do you matter? Every single member of a team in making something happen matters. We've done some studies on the folks that are the most engaged at their jobs and therefore, again, the most productive, the most fun to work with, but also the most productive and the most beneficial for the company or the team. And when it comes to engagement, one of the central themes is purpose. If that person can ascribe purpose to their role, then they are, 10 times, they're much, much, much more likely to be engaged. There's a great story about a janitor that worked in a hospital system, so different industry, but someone that worked in a hospital system, and he really saw his role as, folks are coming in here and they're sick and they're scared, and my job, my purpose is to provide an environment for them that fills them with hope and that removes any obstacle or any additional, sort of deterrent from their happiness, that gives them a place where they can feel safe and comfortable and hopeful. And so when he would go throughout his janitorial work, he would not just clean the floors, but he might leave some flowers or even sometimes a note or, fold down the bed in a way that you don't expect in a hospital system. And he won a lot of awards at his company. He was really effective and engaged and productive because his role mattered so much to him. So when we are developing and sending engaging messages as leaders, how can we show our people why they matter? How can we help deliver purpose in the messages that we're sending? So some additional big picture strategies you can look at down below. Number 2, and this is so important with our communication, is setting clear expectations. And I've got a little 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 up on the screen here. But, in general, if I'm sitting down with one of my people and I'm trying to set expectations, I want to be really explicitly clear. And, so many of us shy away from being clear because we're afraid sometimes of either hurting someone's feelings, maybe we're afraid of being unliked or coming across as demeaning or rude or domineering or something. We've got all sorts of our own messages that get kicked up. But one of the quotes from an author named Brene Brown, who, if you don't know her work, I recommend you look it up. It's solid stuff. But one of her quotes is, clarity is kindness and lack of clarity is lack of kindness. If I, as a leader, cannot gather the courage and sort of the presence to tell you, my people who I am tasked with leading, the truth in a way that is clear and is respectful and is actionable, then I'm preventing you from being the best version of yourself. I'm preventing our team from getting what it is that we need to get done. And ultimately, I'm just really hindering the productivity that we can have, certainly the engagement. So when we sit down to have conversations with our team members, here's a little format that you may follow, especially if there's a case where you feel like someone is underperforming, is here's what you're doing that I really like or appreciate. Here's what's really working. Here's what's going well. Here's what you're doing that I don't like or that's not going well, that's not working, not jiving with the rest of the team or with the requirements of the role. Here's very clearly what I expect from you. If you follow through, here are the benefits. Then this one is only if appropriate. I do not recommend that you pull this one out each time, but if appropriate, if you don't follow through, here's some possible consequences. And then this last one, which is very important, what support do you need from me? So just to make that make sense, here's an example of what that can sound like. I had a team member I was his direct supervisor for about 3 years. He was a director at a company. I was a chief clinical officer at the time, and he was a really phenomenal human and a great member of the team. However, he was chronically late to meetings, and it very much frustrated other members of the team. It very much limited his ability to rise up as a leader within the organization. It didn't show well for him. People didn't feel like he was reliable. But it also got in our way as a team of making the right decisions because we would end up having to waste time reviewing things with him, or he would just miss information at the beginning of most meetings that would then limit his ability to contribute. It wasn't serving him. It wasn't serving us. So a way that communication can look, adhering to that, set clear expectations framework that I just laid out. And just to be clear here, I knew him quite well. That work we talked about at the beginning of you don't engage a them, you engage an individual. I knew this gentleman quite well. And I knew that promotions and being given more responsibility were really important to him, more important to him than money, more important to him than time off, more important to him than like rewards. He really wanted more responsibility. He wanted to feel like he was able to tackle bigger and bigger things. That was what he needed to feel engaged and like he was, where he wanted to be in his career. So my message to him sounded something like this. We'll call him John. John, I have to sit down with you because, one, you're an amazing member of the team. Again, start off with what you like. You have phenomenal judgment. You make great decisions. You go above and beyond. You come in on weekends. I know you take call, late after hours sometimes. You've really made a huge impact on this company, and we're really interested in continuing to work with you and support you. So going over what is working well. What's not working well, John, at this moment is you are chronically late to meetings. And I would pause here and say, do you understand? Is that something that resonates with you? Do you need some examples? But in this case, it was very clear. He knew exactly what I was talking about. So that's what's not working. What I need to see from you is I need you to be on time to meetings. Even try, if you can, to be early, be the first one there, just to challenge yourself. Because I know you, John, and I know how passionate and driven you are and that you want to raise up in this company. You want more responsibility. You want bigger and, larger titles. You want to manage a team of your own. And at this point, when you come late, it really gets in the way of our ability to support you in doing that because you're not showing some basic skills and some basic role modeling of things that we would expect of the people that you would manage. You're also missing out on opportunities to be a part of decisions, et cetera, et cetera. Here's why you being late essentially is limiting you in getting what you want, John, which is a larger title. So what I need to see from you is that you come on time. If you're able to do that, John, consistently, that's one of the few things that's holding you back. I would love to talk with you about managing a larger team within the next 3 to 6 months here. I think that sounds really good. I did not at that point need to go into what, wouldn't happen if he didn't do it. That just wasn't necessary. And then I asked him what support he needed from me. So just an example, really knowing the person, being very clear. And his response, just for the record, was, wow, thank you so much for sitting down with me and talking this out with me. I see that that's a big deal. And he made a huge effort to be on time. He wasn't on time every time. We're not perfect. But I would say he went from a 10% on-time rate to like an 85% on-time rate. It was a really impressive growth for him. Next item here on sending engaging messages, we need to reward and recognize our people. People on our teams are working hard day in and day out. We need to figure out how to reward and recognize them. Again, this needs to be tailored to the individual. So some folks may be more excited and feel more rewarded with something very private. They don't want external, big, parties thrown in their name or big awards or anything. That might actually make them quite uncomfortable. They also may be more monetarily driven, or they may be more driven by words of affirmation. So figuring out, is it a private bonus that might be best for them? Maybe they do want to, have something very public and very sort of some way that they can get some fanfare around them. So maybe they want to be the MVP of the quarter, or they want an award at your next town hall, or they want a shout out via the company email or Slack or whatever. So knowing your people and knowing what types of rewards they would like best is huge. If you're saying to yourself, well, gosh, I don't know what types of rewards they want best, ask them. It's really okay to ask your people and to say, hey, you've been doing great. I'd love to figure out a way to reward you. What would feel really good to you? What are the types of things that would be important to you? And consider some different types of options that you have at your disposal. So next is adapting your communication. And again, this harkens back to, really knowing the individual, but adapting your communication to each person and creating an actual messaging plan. If this is something that is really resonating with you and you feel like, gosh, I want to figure out how to do that, I highly encourage you to put pen to paper, get an accountability partner if that's helpful, get a coach, work with a mentor, work with someone if you're like me and like many people where that sort of external ability to process and to be held accountable is useful. And literally write down who is the person or the people that you're trying to engage, what's their why, what are the most important things to them, what expectations do you need to be setting with them that maybe haven't been explicitly clear or could be evolved as you continue to go throughout your leadership with them. What are some benefits and consequences that you can sort of highlight in your mind that might matter to that person? What type of recognition would be the most valuable to them? Who else may need to be involved in either communicating with them or in this sort of process with them? And then when do you want to communicate with them? And I could add to their how as well. So really adapting that communication to the individual. And you'll notice a theme here today. Everything is very structured, very process driven. Some of these things you may not need to put pen to paper and actually write down, but it's a way of helping yourself think through these conversations and these engagement initiatives that is it makes you more able to really hone in on what you need to do and how you need to adapt as a leader to most effectively engage your people. So next section, mistake number 3, and this is my favorite one to discuss. Mistake number 3, sometimes we just haven't earned the right to lead. And I can definitely resonate with this. I can think of a specific role, my first director level role earlier in my career. I was having such a difficult time getting people on board with the things that, you know, I wanted to help the company accomplish, with the initiatives that I was trying to, you know, get people aligned for. I just was having such a difficult time. And what I know now that I couldn't see then was I simply had not earned the right to lead. So this next portion, this is my favorite portion of this webinar, so I'm excited to lead you through it. But we're going to talk about, number 1, just a quick self-assessment. Number 2, what earning the right to lead looks like. And number 3, some key insights. So diving in right now, the quick self-assessment. I'd encourage you to get out a piece of paper, get out your phone for a little notepad or something, but these are going to be questions personal to you. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being never, and 10 being always, I want you to do your best to answer each of the following about yourself. Get out your pen or your phone, whatever, if you don't have it yet. So number 1, would you guess that people at work on a scale of 1 to 10, they do what you ask them to do? So just be really honest. When you ask people to do something at work, 1 is never ever, they never do it. 10 is they always jump right to it. Do people do what you ask them to do? Number 1. Number 2, people show up on time for meetings with you. They show up on time. We're trying to get a sense here for, have you earned the right to lead or not? Looking at other people's behavior as it relates to you is a great way to try to figure that out. So are people generally speaking on time for meetings with you, scale 1 through 10? Number 3, do they ask for and value your opinion? Are people coming to you and saying, hey, I'd love to bounce this thing off of you? And are they really listening? If your answer is never, then we may want to look at, have you earned the right to lead? Number 4, are people going above and beyond to meet or exceed your expectations? Are they really going out of their way to do a great job for the things that you would hope that they're up to? Number 5, literally, do people listen attentively when you speak? Cue in, pay attention to their body language. Think about it. When you're in a room full of people at a meeting, are others sort of side talking while you are, or are they giving you eye contact and nodding along and really listening attentively when you speak? Number 6, do people bring you their ideas for consideration? Do they see you as someone that's worthy of that? Of, gosh, if I've got something cool that I'm thinking about, do I bring it to this person and say, oh, could they add on to it? Could they help me make it happen? Could they be a decider in whether or not it goes on? Are people bringing you new ideas? Number 7, are people asking you to mentor them? And this may never have happened, and that's not indicative to say that you haven't earned the right to lead. It just may not have happened yet for you. But people, proactively saying, hey, I'd really love to spend more time with you. I'd love to learn from you. I'd love your mentorship. That's a good indicator that you're earning the right to lead. And number 8, do you believe that people would recommend you as a great person to work for or to work with? And just be honest here. You're not going to have to share this list with anyone, but would people recommend you as a great person to work for? Scale of 1 through 10. So as you look at that list, I'd ask you to consider, and you can pop it in the questions box if that feels, useful to you, but I just ask you to consider, where are you right now? over, you can add up the numbers if that's helpful to you. You can just sort of generally see what resonates with you. Where are you at this very moment in terms of people perceiving you or treating you as someone who has earned the right to lead? I'll say if you had a lot of answers that are like a 5 or below, then we may need to look at, okay, what are some things that you could do to better earn the right to lead? If most of your answers are like 7, 8, 9, maybe even some 10s in there, then that's a good indicator that you're doing a lot of the right things to have earned the right to lead. And you may want to just look at some of those specific areas where the numbers were lower and see where you may be able to improve. So okay, thank you for going through that quick self-assessment. The question then, of course, becomes, what do we do about it? So how do we actually earn the right to lead? There's so many things that go into earning the right to lead. And I'm going to pop up on the screen in a moment my top 3 favorites that we need to look at when it comes to earning the right to lead. And then I'll give you guys a list of a bunch more that we may need to consider. But my top 3 favorites, number 1, leader goes first. So if I'm a leader, and I'm sure you guys have had these people in your lives, and I'm barking out orders and I'm telling people to do this, that, or the other. I'm telling people they need to engage in a certain way or they need to be able to perform at a certain level or whatever. And I'm not personally measuring up. I'm saying, hey, you need to have less typos in your emails. And I'm sending out these emails with 1,000 typos in them, or I'm saying, hey, we really need to be able to put in the elbow grease, put in the extra work. We're at crunch time right now. We've got a big project coming up. Everybody needs to be willing to go above and beyond. And I'm leaving the office every day at 3 p.m. and setting my out of office notification on the weekends. Then I'm not going first. If I am someone who's not willing to do the things and be the things that I'm asking my people to do and be, then it can be really difficult for others to want to follow me, to want to be inspired by me, to feel engaged ultimately with what it is that I'm asking them to do. Number 2, what are you tolerating as a leader? I worked with an organization for a while that really prioritized culture. Culture's big in this day and age, and a lot of organizations have cued in that they need to figure out culture if they're going to attract great talent, if they're going to keep that talent engaged, and ultimately if they're going to be effective. So a lot of people talk about culture, but this organization I was working with, I was consulting, they talked a lot about culture, and they talked about how people needed to be respectful and how people needed to be, have a high sense of camaraderie with one another and be just kind to each other at the workplace. They really wanted to have this culture of sort of kindness and fairness and respect. And they had some middle managers and some directors that modeled the opposite, that were literally, treating people really poorly, barking orders, sending curt, terse emails, becoming exasperated very easily, and treating people really bad, on a human-to-human basis, which was what this company was saying that they did not, they stood against that they were saying we don't tolerate that. Yet in multiple examples, those people who treated others poorly were being promoted. They were getting more responsibility, and it was flying right in the face of what this company said was important to them. And lo and behold, other people, particularly those that had to report up to those managers and directors that were, being promoted and being given these big raises when they were acting against what the company said they stood for, well, those people were completely disengaged. Many of them left. Those that were still there were definitely not productive, definitely not happy, definitely not, advocates or, sort of speaking well about the company in their personal lives and that sort of thing, because the company was tolerating things that they had stated they stood against. So as a leader, what are you tolerating? Are you tolerating behaviors amongst your people that fly against what it is you say you stand for or what you want to see from your organization? And number 3, and this one is a big ticket. We're not going to be able to do it justice in the last few minutes here, but emotional intelligence. Adam and I will be speaking live in Nashville about emotional intelligence as it relates to leadership skills. I really hope you guys can come or tune into that webinar, because this is, when it comes to leadership efficacy, emotional intelligence, or EI, is now widely, researched to and widely understood to surmount IQ, to surmount education, to surmount even like to an extent, who you know, or, where you've been before in terms of your efficacy and your potential to rise up in your career. Emotional intelligence is huge. And just a brief descriptor for today, emotional intelligence is how aware am I of what's going on inside of me, and how tuned in am I to what's going on inside of you? And then how able am I to direct my energy and my action so that I am responding and engaging in a way that fully honors my emotional state and your emotional state, and hopefully brings us closer together and helps us be more on the same page and, moving in the same direction. So, emotional intelligence is essentially about self and other awareness, and then to an extent, self and other management. And, again, we'll dive into this deep in Nashville, but leadership is ultimately about helping to inspire the performance of others. And there is no stronger way to do that than through really understanding and tuning into and being intentional about the way in which we affect other people's emotions. So we may not have earned the right to lead because we've got some work to do in terms of our emotional intelligence. We may think that, people are comfortable with us, or that they respect us, or that they feel respected by us, but we're kind of tuned out and we haven't figured out empathy, or we haven't figured out self-awareness yet. So we don't really recognize it, but when we get stressed out, it's so palpable to our people, and it drives the whole team or the whole company into sort of a frenzy. Or maybe when there's a deadline looming, we start, interacting with people with lots of anger, or maybe we shrink and we just sort of don't show up as a leader when things get tough because our emotions get our goat, they get the better of us. So developing our emotional intelligence is huge in terms of earning the right to lead. And there's a million examples of how that can come out. But again, hope you guys will show up next month. Some additional factors here, and we'll just go over these quickly, but they're all important. We need to be modeling the values that we in our companies and our organizations espouse. We ourselves need to have a high level of performance. It's really tough to want to get behind a leader who isn't a strong performer. Hopefully those people aren't always, or aren't promoted into leadership roles all that often, but you and I both know it happens. So we need to make sure that our performance is strong enough to warrant the respect and the following of others. Kind of in line with that, we need to make sure we've got great credibility, strong communication. We need to be rewarding. This is kind of the flip side of what we tolerate. As a leader, we need to be rewarding those behaviors as well as those performance attributes that we most want to see in our people. We need to really be listening to our people, the strongest leaders and those that are able to engage and mobilize their teams and therefore able to get the most done. They really listen. They seek to understand. They seek to gather ideas. We ourselves need to have a strong work ethic, be able to manage our own time. We need to be able to react to stress in a way that makes others feel confident in us. We certainly need to have, relationships that are built on mutual respect, that are positive and professional. And ultimately, we need to be dependable. If people are reaching out to us for help or with ideas, or, just for basic tasks of being on a team together, and we're either not showing up or showing up late or not responding in a timely manner, or saying that we're going to do something and then we don't do it, all those things can really break trust and decrease folks' experience of us in terms of having us earn the right to lead. So in addition to figuring out our individualized engagement strategies and really figuring out, again, that mistake number 2, how to adapt our messages, we need to make sure that underneath all of that, we've earned the right to lead. So from here, what I would encourage you guys to do, and you don't need to do this at this exact moment, but on your pen and paper, in your conversations with, each other or your peers or your coaches, your mentors, what are your insights? Judge based on what we've discussed today. What are some key insights, some pieces where you have awareness on your own engagement at this very moment, your own ability to have earned the right to lead, your own ability to craft engaging messages. And then from there, if you are someone who is driven in this area, if you're interested in having a team that is as behind you as possible, that is mobilized to accomplish not just your goals of today, but really exceed them and push forward to the goals of tomorrow and next month and next year, what are some strategies that you can actually put in place with yourself? What are some top engagement priorities? What are you going to do about each of those priorities? Who will need to be involved? How will you hold yourself accountable to actually doing it? And when is it that you're going to do it? So, as Adam and I are both certified executive coaches, and coaching is all about action. It's all about, putting one foot in front of the other. So this brief framework can help you make sure that you've got some actual actions in place that can move the needle forward. And this last thing, just a quote: the highest levels of performance come to people who are centered, intuitive, creative, and reflective people who know to see a problem as an opportunity. And this idea of high performance stemming from this place of being centered, being intuitive, being reflective, at the end of the day, those are the types of things that we need to be, not just that we need to do, but the way that we need to be if we're really going to engage and mobilize our people. So this has been part 3 of your leadership webinar series. This is me, who's on the phone with you today, presenting. Adam is our co-presenter. You will see him in Nashville. And at this point, Nicole, I will turn it back to you for questions.
They're a very quiet group, and you explain things very, very well. So if you guys do have questions, please use the questions box here on your screen to, ask Ilana any of those questions. And, also Ilana and Adam's email addresses are here on the screen. So, jot those down while you have out that pen and paper that you were using. Here's one for us. It says, how does one go about convincing someone who did not earn their leadership position that I would make a good leader?
Interesting. So if the person can write, in fact, it sounds like that person in a role where they're in a leadership position over you, would be my first question. Is this sort of a managing up type of a scenario? If you'd like to write an answer to that, that'd be great. But I'll start going, Nicole, if they don't write right away. What I would say is that when it comes to convincing someone, anyone really, that you are ready for a bigger leadership position, all those things that we talked about around having earned the right to lead are huge. So make sure that every single one of those you can check off and say, yep, I think I'm an 8, 9, or 10 on those, I've earned the right to lead in these capacities. Number 1. Number 2, I would really target what are the things that you want to be doing. If you want more responsibility, you want a higher position, what are the things that you want to be doing in your next role when you do jump up in the organization? And what can you start doing today that puts you into a position where others can observe you already doing those things? What projects can you get involved in? What pieces can you take off of a senior leader's plate, perhaps? What things can you bring to the team in a proactive way? How can you start to carve out for yourself a reputation or an acknowledgement that you're already living those sort of higher level responsibilities? Number 2. And then number 3, everything we talked about really understanding the other person and then going from there to engage them. If there is someone that's sort of, quote unquote, in your way or like standing in your path, or someone that you need their buy-in for you to be given the opportunity to have a bigger position or promotion, whatever that may be, really try to understand them, what's valuable for them, what makes them tick, what are roadblocks in their way, and then figure out what can you do to help them. And once you figure out how to help them, then second question would be, what can you do to most effectively communicate with them and advocate for yourself, coming from that place of understanding, who they are. So yeah, that would be my thoughts on those.
So yeah, the answer to your question did come through. Yes, the person asking the question reports to the person that should not be in the leadership position.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, those last things that I said are really valid. Just figure out what can you do to support them, what can you do to carve out the pieces that you can take today that show that you're ready for more responsibility, and then make sure that you're doing everything within your power to be the dependable, emotionally intelligent person that, at least from a basic level, has earned the right to lead.
Here's an interesting one that's definitely, for today's day and age. What are some tips for successfully engaging and leading when you are remote from your team?
Yes, really good question. When we are remote, and I've been remote from my team now for many years. At this point, I'm the CEO and founder of my own company. All my employees are remote. But previously, I was a leader within an organization where most people were on the ground together, and I was one of the few that was remote. And what I would say about that is you have to prioritize your relationships with the people. You have to go out of your way and spend the extra time. If you have a chance to visit in person on some sort of, cadence, that's great. Make sure that if you are visiting in person, you're spending every breakfast, lunch, dinner, every kind of minute that you can of the day with people, building relationships. And if you're 100% remote, if you're never there in person, same thing would fly. People work with people. If people feel like they don't know you or you're just a name on the side of an email, it's going to very much hurt your ability to be engaged with them, whether you're their leader or they're your leader or you guys are peers or whatever. So invest the extra time necessary to really get to know them. Schedule one-on-ones. During those one-on-ones, talk about family and life and things outside of just work. Get to know the people. Once people feel like they know you, they like you, they respect you as a human, they will be 1,000 times more likely to respond to your email in a timely manner, go above and beyond, etc. So that would be my biggest thought: get to know the people.
And let's see here. I lost my questions box. And that was the last one we have, and it's exactly 3:00. So we will end on that note. Ilana, thank you so very much for all these great tips. Thank you for all who are on today. We hope that you're walking away with some productive knowledge and some best practices that you can implement into your own daily work life. So we hope that we'll see you back here on the webinar series or face-to-face in Nashville in May. So again, Ilana, thank you so much, and we'll see you all again very soon.
Thank you. Yeah, bye-bye.